Now, Carrie was a breakout movie and book from the legendary horror and suspense writer Stephen King. Now, on the surface, we believe that the movie Carrie is really about a lonely, loser teenage girl with a zealot for a mother, and that she has this uncanny ability to move things around with her mind, telekinesis, so to speak. Yet, there is something that is brimming beneath the surface, underneath the cool animation and memorable dialogue, and, of course, amazing imagery. There is a story about a little girl who is suffering from severe abuse and, yes, toxic shame. So I'm going to explain to you how toxic shame works in this video, so please stay tuned. So the movie starts with some good old-fashioned character development. There is Carrie's mother, a religious nut, and she believes that everything that is natural about a woman is somehow sinful.
I can see your dirty pillows. Everyone will.
She keeps her daughter sheltered and cloaked in her own twisted religious fantasies. As a result of this, Carrie grows up very isolated and lonely, and she's suffering from a great deal of internalized toxic shame. Now, it's important to understand that there's a difference between healthy and unhealthy shame. Healthy shame is when you do things that you know are wrong and you feel the need to rectify the situation. You seek resolutions, and this is why you can heal from healthy shame.
I want to go to prom. What girl doesn't want one magical night? Maybe I can give that up for her.
Because you want to remedy a situation. You want to right a wrong, so to speak. You want to rectify the harm that you may have imposed on other people. Now, toxic shame normally develops during childhood, when teachers, parents, or loved ones beat into your head that you're simply not good enough. Toxic shame is when people tell you that you're ugly, you're stupid, you're sinful, or not deserving of equal treatment. With toxic shame, one or two things happen. You internalize these belief systems or you project these ideas onto other people. Let's take a look at Carrie's mother, for example. She was constantly projecting all of her internalized feelings of self-loathing, shame, and even guilt onto other people. She believed that people could not be trusted. People were sinful. People were going to hurt her and her daughter. In truth, Carrie's mother lived a life of a recluse, because the simple act of being around people triggered all of her suppressed feelings of guilt, self-loathing, and shame. These internal feelings make it very difficult for people like Carrie's mother to find love and intimacy, which is really a huge part of our human nature. And when we are blocked from our very own nature, we become zealots, fanatics, so to speak. And we're so far removed from reality that we unknowingly cause a great deal of harm to the people that we supposedly love. Now, it's important to understand when it comes to children that they are not fully equipped to deal with a great deal of trauma. So in most situations, these feelings are suppressed until they reach a certain age. In Carrie's case, it was when she got her very first period. So I'm guessing she was around 16 or 17, which is pretty old to get your period, to be honest with you. So this brings us to the infamous shower scene that is actually incredibly powerful, because for the first time we see Carrie's shame bubbling up to the surface. She is naked and incredibly vulnerable and unaware of her body's natural changes. What many of us fail to understand about this scene is that women have been shunned all throughout history for the spilling of quote unquote unnatural blood. In many indigenous cultures, they had this superstitious belief that the power of a woman's blood and its ability to create and destroy was inherently evil. In other stories, such as Midsummer and the Love Witch, we can see how the characters use blood to entice, beguile, and cast magical mystical spells onto unsuspecting victims. Yet, the power of a woman's blood is symbolically known as the seed of creation. It gives life and is essential to our existence as human beings. Sadly, when the shedding of blood becomes associated with fear and shame, its potency becomes muddled. So much so that we women are misguided about the powers and the full abilities of our own bodies, souls, and minds. Now, this brings us to the witch hunts. And people think that the witch hunts were aimed at just burning witches. Witches were these terrible, terrible people. In truth, the witch hunts were designed to dethrone deities who were associated with feminine power.
Witch.
I'm not a witch, Mama. There are no witches.
Devil's got her now.
It's not the devil.
In our ancestors' day, we had a great deal of priests and priestesses who taught us all the ways of the goddess. We understood our bodies, our feminine energy. We understand the power of being a woman, and we used those powers to heal, guide, and even inspire. Yet thousands of years of information was lost during the witch hunts, where wise women were beaten and brutally tortured. Then the smear campaigns began, where anyone who was even suspecting of dibbling and dabbling into what was known as the black arts or witchcraft was ousted, ostracized, even shunned. This marks the beginning of toxic shame being used as a psychological weapon. It was a weapon where the powers that be never had to spill any blood. All they had to do was plant the seed of shame in the minds of the people around them, and persuade people that wise women were inherently evil for tapping into their natural abilities and their natural powers. Even today, people are afraid of witches, warlocks, and voodoo. And you figured with all the information readily available, people would take the time to educate themselves. Yet they can't do that. Why? Well, because there is this seductive power that comes along with having scapegoats. The power comes with this transfer of negative energy, which is also known in the spiritual realm as energy dumping.
Crazy Carrie! Crazy Carrie! Crazy Carrie! Crazy Carrie!
Energy dumping is the reasons why people get a sick sense of pleasure out of berating, belittling, and bullying other people. The release of negative energy is exhilarating and even addicting. This is why people are constantly seeking out helpless victims who they can beat on physically, mentally, and even psychologically. Meanwhile, the victim is forced to carry the weight of their abuser's negative energy. And if that energy is not alchemized, turned from negative energy into positive energy, it turns inward and becomes completely destructive, where the victim begins to destroy everyone around them, including themselves.